Welcome, everybody, to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer, and I'm a podcast engineer here. And I'm excited to bring you another episode of the SB Bridge Show with Suzanne Plumley that we do here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. And talking about uh, things connected with um, autism and Asperger's. Or lifestyle and kind of connected with that. Encourage everybody to check out all of our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and so on. I'd love to have you as a guest, so let us know if you are interested. But with nothing further to do, pass this over to Suzanne to kick us off today.
Well, hello everyone, and fortunately, I am inside. It is a cold day in where a lot of us have had a little snow, so I'm not out at my Abbey Bridge, but you can picture it behind me. For the last 3 weeks, at the beginning of 2025, we've been talking about all different ways that you can get your body moving so that you can start the year going forward in some kind of a practice to get your body up and going instead of staying a couch potato. And I like this because we're talking about the health and well-being aspect of your life and how that can really uplift your whole mood and your body wellness and everything. And without further ado, what I'd love to tell you is with all the wonderful autistic individuals that are out telling you what the traits are, such as Paul Micallef in Australia and Samantha Stein in the UK, Sarah Hendricks here in the US, and Sarah Hendricks in the UK, and Temple Grandin here in the US, and all the other wonderful autistic level 1, level 2 individuals who are telling you what the traits of autism are. The mission of the Aspen Bridge is to connect you, the listener, with all sorts of wonderful resources. Now, my resources happen to come from Brave Thinking Institute life coaches. We're all spiritually certified as life coaches. And today I have Emily Manchinock. Is that the correct way to say it?
Monternock, you're good though, Suzanne. It's common.
Okay. Today we have Emily, and she will help you in forms of education. She'll be back on in a couple of weeks to also talk about how Ayurveda can help you with getting all of your organs to work together. And that's also through if I understood it correctly, through using yoga to work out. So you'll be seeing Emily not once, but twice in the next few months. So we have a special treat for you. Emily, would you like to tell everybody about yourself today?
Yes, please. Thanks, Suzanne. So, I am a life coach and yoga guide. I also do Ayurveda consultations and work with people really to live their best lives. So, a life that they would love and truly enjoy. I do take yoga off the mat because it's not just about the asana. It also has meditation, movement, morals, and ethics. And it creates these benefits that we'll talk a little bit more in depth about. Ayurveda is a sister science, and we'll dive into that a little bit more next time. But for today, we'll talk about the yoga. So I've been teaching for a little over 8 years and really been enjoying it. And before that, I was an engineer. I still have some of that with me for problem solving, don't get me wrong, but working through both sides of the brain for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Oh, really? Yeah, can get a lot of the problem solving brought right into that. So that's a great way to combine all of your special zones of expertise, as I like to call all of us. We each have a zone.
Mhm.
And I think that's wonderful. And I asked you to come on today because the first week of January on the podcast, we talked about walking and getting into nature and lifting weights. And that's going to be more of your cardio based exercise. And then last week, we talked with Cody about using transcendence to really loosen up and relieve the stress and build the confidence and relax and have fun and pick up your mood. And I love the idea that we're now going to bring in yoga so that people, depending on what their coordination is, can pick which of the three. Now, of course, there is one more, and it's martial arts, which we haven't gone into, and perhaps later on this year we will bring in martial arts. That's the one section we hadn't talked about yet as far as movement, but the three of them, you can certainly get a great idea, whether it's walking in weights or transcendence or yoga. I'm sure you can find a practice that will really help you to get your body moving, get the mindfulness going, get the breathing and the meditation in. And can you tell us, Emily, tell us why you think yoga became such an important practice for many people who wouldn't ordinarily exercise?
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's a great question, Suzanne. So, yoga started over 5,000 years ago in India. And a lot of times, ancient yogis, they would run or walk first to really get everything moving in the body, the blood flow going. Because what happens then is we start to do more detox and cleansing. Once they were done with that, they would do movement on the mat and their stretching, flexibilities, strength, balance, all of that came into play before they would finally relax. The mind settles after our yoga asana, and we're able to sit, breathe, feel, and connect internally to our heart and our mind and find that balance so we can meditate and really hear that inner small voice. So that's part of the benefits of like practicing and bringing that practice into your daily life. A lot of people will come to yoga and they'll feel really good afterwards. Sometimes that's because we've got, things stuck in the body, whether it's an emotional thing or a mental thing or an experience. And when we stretch the body and we find that strength within and we practice with that, our external and our internal experiences, we're able to process life and be more present. So that way we
Mhm.
can focus a little bit more on what's ahead and learn from our history, let it go, let it pass, be more calm in our everyday lives.
I like that. Does that work also for people who've gone through, let's say, PTSD or CPTSD? Because I know that there are a lot of us that are out there that may have some pent up trauma. So I know it can relieve the normal everyday stresses, but what about, can you speak anything to people who have gone through a form of trauma or complex trauma that's really released as well? Because I know a lot of people are like, yeah, that won't work for me.
Yeah, it definitely does. Trauma, there's actually trauma informed yoga in different ways, like the Wounded Warrior Project, specifically for folks in the military, that it's training so the teachers can be very informed when they're working with their students. But what happens when we do yoga, and there's many scientific studies on this from across the world, what happens when we release that tissue, our fascia and our nervous system opens up and we get these different signals to the brain. So sometimes we'll get memories of things coming up and we get to
Mm.
work through those. So it is something that I have had some training on related to trauma. And I'll explain even from my own experience. So when I've gone through like the loss of a grandparent or
Mhm.
something like that, I will come to the mat and find that heart space. It can be tough to grieve once in a while in front of other people, or maybe just finding that internal space and finding that peace of, okay, how does this make me feel? The yoga mat becomes a place for that. And it gets really comfortable because we spend so much time there and we're allowed to be who we want to be and who we are without judgment. It doesn't matter if someone else in the room is doing a handstand and I'm laying on the mat doing shavasana. The important part is that we show up, we come to the practice, we allow that physical release, the emotional, the mental, and we find that inner sense of calm. So me coming to my mat to grieve from my grandmother or something like that was a process of, you know, what is it going to be like to grieve? What is it going to be like for my parents? What is it going to be like for them or my cousins or other people, and understanding what that's like, but also feeling what it feels like for me, because we've got to do our own self-care too, and
Right.
really understand and say, yeah, I miss her. And, she's still around when I want to think about her. We sometimes think about cardinals coming or other signs depending on our grandparents or our other family members that have passed away. But that's maybe one experience, probably not, as strong as PTSD from the military or, burnout, some of those experiences that can be really tough. Sometimes our inner child comes out. Those things can be
Mm-hmm.
tough. But when we hold space on the mat for ourselves and for others, those things can come up, and it's really nice to be in a safe and comfortable environment where that happens. And that's important to the yoga teacher to be able to provide that based on the practice. And we do have ethics and morals that we sign up for being a yoga teacher to be open and provide that.
Mm. I can see where that can really release even more than maybe perhaps a running around the block to try and get away from our feelings. That actually brings the feelings in and experiences it and releases it. So that might be more of even, well, a good playlist while walking or jogging is good. I can understand how this might really release. Now, can you tell us about some of the different? I know that there are a couple of different kinds of yoga. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the different kinds and why one would be? Um, well, I know that they're all valuable. Maybe there isn't one that's better than the others.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the best part about it is finding what feels right for the person. So, I even encourage if someone comes to class and they feel like it was too fast or it was too slow, depending on the type of class, I'll encourage them to say, hey, it's the class that works for you. It's okay. Try this one or try a different teacher until you really get into that groove of what feels good for you. We are going to do a little bit of the vinyasa or like a hatha style, which is mostly the movements, but we'll do some breath work and a short meditation for today, just to get the full concept and aspect of the experience of a yoga class. However, there are other versions like Kundalini, and that's got a set type of movements. It's the same order. And Iyengar or Bikram have similar things. Hot
Mhm.
yoga is like 115 degrees. If you like it warm and you want to detox and sweat, we do encourage you to, listen to your internal body so you don't overstretch, right? Or understretch. And you want to be warm when you do yoga, which is important. There's also like laughing yoga, which is good for the abdomen and everything else. And who doesn't love laughter? Um,
Right.
yeah. Yoga Nidra, which is a different aspect of yoga where we rest and relax, but we come into this state of the mind where we're a little bit unconscious. We're in between conscious and unconscious, not yet asleep,
Hmm.
yet not fully present and aware. It's a really beautiful place where our inner voice comes out. There's
That's like
yin and
the theta level, isn't it? That's like the theta level. Another. Yeah. Okay. That's what I
yeah,
had heard.
and alpha. Yes, alpha.
Alpha.
For the
Okay. Okay.
brainwave. Yes. Yeah, like a flow state. A flow state. Yeah. Um, And there's yin and restorative and plenty of other options out there. And I know some people do them with weights. So you may find a class that has some Pilates or weight, depending on what a person is looking for. There's there's forms for all of it, and sometimes you can even make your own. If you wanted to make up your own name, I I think it's possible.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Now, I'm wearing my signature workout outfit, but tell us, for those people who are listening, what do you recommend is the best outfit to get into to really be able to do most of the movements without feeling any kind of a restriction, clothing restriction. What do you recommend?
So my recommendation is something comfortable. And a lot of times you'll see people in yoga pants, which are tighter and they have flexibility to them. However, you'll notice today that I am wearing pants that are a little bit looser. And now sometimes I do have to adjust a bit in these pants, but they feel really nice and flowy. And that's just how I was feeling today. Um, there are times where it's nice to have like tighter clothing around the hips or the waist, but I even have a little bit looser today. It is about -10 this morning and -4 currently. So I was like, I'm going to dress warm no matter what. Layers is always good because at the beginning, you might come into class if you're not in hot yoga and it might be cooler. And then you might warm up as the practice goes because our blood flow increases. And then as we settle back into Shavasana and relax or meditation, you might cool off. So you'll notice that I'll take my socks off during part of the class and I'll leave them on during part of the class. And that's a different way to keep the body warm, which is important. So it kind of varies.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's something that you're comfortable in, and then just adjust as you need to. I think that's more important than looking, like the person in the sports bra and the for a female or whoever wants to wear one. And the tight leggings, there's all kinds of, clothes that a person could wear. And ancient yogis, they would be barefoot, maybe sandals, whatever they could be comfortable in to move. So
That's my next question was going to be is what about the footwear? Is it a lot of bare feet and socks as I've seen? Or do some people pick up ballet shoes? I heard you say sandals.
yeah. So what really
Is there anything else?
oh sorry. It really
No.
it really depends on where a person is at. So if you're like, I just need to do some movement and I'm going to do standing postures and you're in your shoes, great. If you need the support, right, under your feet of tennis shoes or something like that as you're active, depending on what's going on in the body, that's perfectly okay. A lot of times we'll practice barefoot. Socks gets difficult as you do some of the standing postures because they get slippery. And you can adjust that by like using a towel or getting the mats that are a little bit stickier. However,
Mm-hmm.
having each of the 5 toes grip the mat really feels nice and helps with balance. And so those are good things. You'll see a lot of people do it barefoot on their mat. However, it's ultimately best of what a person needs because there will be students that come, especially if we do chair yoga or something that's a little more relaxed, or the older generation, people that haven't done stretching quite as much. We would probably wear shoes. So I'll wear shoes for my chair yoga and get comfortable. It feels different. When I teach aqua yoga at the pool, some people will wear pool shoes, and that's okay, right? We don't want to slip on the bottom of the pool. So it kind of varies, and also where you're going to be practicing. However, if nothing else, being able to move your toes is still important.
That's great. Man, I think I've seen all forms of yoga now. I mean, I used to do the aqua aerobics, which was a lot of fun. And then, of course, people are now taking up on the paddle boards. Not quite sure I have quite the balance there. That would be a work of balance for me. But I mean, it's amazing. Can you tell me why there might be some benefit? I think I understand why there might be a benefit of outdoor versus indoor, but what is your concept of indoor versus outdoor yoga? What are the benefits of each?
Yeah, I think the benefits of indoor versus outdoor. So when we're doing indoor, we have a sacred space that we all practice in, right? Or maybe it's a gym, maybe it's another, which we can still create sacred space. We don't mean that like yoga studio versus a gym, more of just having that space, and we know we can control the temperature and everything else. However, if you're outside and that's the space you have, or you need some movement to have that calm, by all means, practicing outside is just okay. I do think it's good to have the body by around like 65 at least degrees. So that way we don't get injury, right? If we're
Hmm.
overstretching or something like that, if it's cold, or at least taking more care as we're doing the stretching, being gentle with the body, using more props, things like that. That's just my personal opinion and how I try to practice with folks and keep the classes outside. There is benefit of connecting to nature and it feels good. We can feel this direct contact of the sun or the wind on the face. We're able to move around. I do caution be careful of hills or the edge of mountains, things like that. Um, but ultimately it can be practiced everywhere. Once we're outside, we have nature. There sometimes can be distractions when you're outside too, imagining bugs and all of that. However, it feels good when we can do it in nature because the energy is different too. We're able to connect to the trees or the plants around us, or maybe we have other animals that come join us, like a goat yoga class or something like that. So there's plenty available. Um, Initially, I spent a lot of time outside practicing as I was going through different things. It was nice to be able to be out on a weekend or find a quiet spot on a trail just to stretch out a little bit.
Mm. Wow. I mean, I think you give people so many different options, which is good. Not to be overwhelming, but just the options. From what I hear you saying is, first of all, you want to be comfortable. Second of all, temperature will have a lot to do with it. And then third is, what is your level of distraction? And
Mhm.
if you're someone who does get distracted more often, maybe indoors might be a better opportunity for you to really get into it. But if you're more someone who really communes with nature, outdoors might be better. So it sounds like it's a very personalized what you need right now. And sometimes those needs can change. Sometimes you might need the indoor, sometimes you might need the outdoor. Now, for me, I know that with aqua aerobics and aqua yoga, you have the resistancy of the water. So maybe would you say that that's great for if you've just are starting to recover from not just starting, but recovering from some kind of a medical injury? Would you say the buoyancy of water might be the way to go before they get onto land?
It's definitely a good way to go in aqua yoga or in water. That's one form. There's not going to be much where the head is below the heart, which is important for some folks too, especially if they've got any heart issues, things like that going on, or they get lightheaded easily. It's very, very good for any recovery. And the resistance is amazing. If it's in like a warm therapy pool, two,
Hmm.
it can be great for arthritis if it's painful to move, or if someone's just getting started and there's a lot of aches and pains coming up. A lot of times that resolves that right away rather than having that soreness for like 2 or 3 days. Um,
Right.
which we can get familiar with when we lift heavy weights or something like that, or do a movement that's different than our normal. Yeah, it's very, very good for that. And there's options along the way to do it um, in like a bungee system, physical therapy. Sometimes they'll use like
Okay.
support as well. So if you don't have access to, a pool or anything like that, or it's not warm enough outside, something like a harness and connecting that up to a bungee can also be supportive. So we're not putting as much strain or weight on different things for physical therapy. Or aerial yoga, if anybody's seen that, there's like a little hammock. And now both of those can, all three of them really, aqua included, can get intense too, right? There's a lot of balancing
Right.
postures typically in aqua yoga because we're doing a lot more standing, strengthening than we are holding, flexibility as much. So Yeah, but you phrased all of that perfectly, really, really well and beautifully for what to choose for a person and what the differences are too about inside and outside and meeting the person where they're at for what they need. Yeah, and it might change. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I know there are a lot of women that are autistic that also suffer from fibromyalgia. So I just wanted to give them the option that they're not they're not stuck without an exercise. This might be the perfect way for them to really pull in their fibromyalgia, and who knows, they may find that they are dealing with the symptoms a lot less. We never want to say that people are going to be completely cured, but some of the aches and pains, as you talked about, may be really reduced down. That they may have some days when they're not experiencing any symptoms,
Mm.
and when they are experiencing more, they may be able to find the certain that's really going to get them back to that wonderful feeling of, well, yeah, I have fibromyalgia, but it doesn't have me anymore. So, Emily, I know you want to show us some beginning poses that the women can try, but you also mentioned a meditation as well. You can decide which way you want to go because you know the practice of how to get started and where we should be going. So, by all means, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Okay, that sounds great. Yes, yoga does really help fibromyalgia. I have had a couple of students that have had that, and movement. The phrase motion is lotion. So movement of any form will help anybody, when it comes down to it. So I'll teach a couple of beginner poses and we'll end with a little bit of stillness. It just lets the body settle and reconnect a little bit. I am going to adjust here.
Okay.
I've got
Yeah, whatever makes it
to put
easier
this
for you to
on.
do it, by all means. It's a lot easier if you're not holding your phone at the same time, for sure.
I think the view would be a little different for sure.
Oh, great.
And my goal today is to show you all how to do some regular postures, some seated, comfortable ones, and then some sun salutations. And sun salutations are a great place. I'm still working on my, sorry about that for the view, but the stand here, just a moment,
No
sorry.
worries.
Um,
Do what you need to do.
okay. Sun salutations are a great place to start. If you practice in the morning, it'll give you energy, yoga will. If you practice in the evening, it's normally a more relaxed process, relaxed feeling. Um, but they're a great place to start where we can stretch the whole body all at once. And so that's one of the reasons for that today. Let me
Perfect.
just a little bit. Okay. I think you'll still be able to see me, but if I get back there, I'll adjust. I did bring so props real quick before I get too far. Props are good for yoga, and you can use at home. A person could use belts, scarves if they need to instead of straps that they have in class. I did bring a blanket. I mentioned it was a little bit chilly out there today, so sometimes it's nice at the end of meditation to have a blanket, or it's easy to roll up or fold and use it for different postures, especially under the knees. There are blocks, or you could use books or, a filled Ziploc container that you might have put something in, as long as it's not going to break when you put the pressure on it. Um, Something like that to help you move. And I think that's good to know because you might see me doing it a certain way, and I'll talk about some modifications. But I'd love for you to find a way that feels best for you, where you still get the benefit, but you can also adjust with those. So I'll talk through that a little bit. I'm going to set the blanket aside for a moment and come back and test. The other thing is water. It's just a super important part. You'll hear me talk about that probably with Ayurveda as well. Okay, I think you're still okay for
Yep,
you.
I
Can
can
you
see you.
see
Yep.
your feet? Okay, cool.
I can't see your
So we're
feet.
gonna no.
Nope.
Let me adjust just a
There we
little
go. Now
bit.
I can see your mat. I should be able to see your
You
feet
should
with
be
your
able
mat.
to. Okay. I'm in a little bit
Yep.
of a space in my normal. So, so we're just going to start in a comfortable seated. Now, feet can be in, feet can be long. Find us if that feels good. But our length through the spine is what's important. The shoulders roll back. So even if you were in a chair, you could put your feet flat on the floor and sit on the chair, having that length in the spine. Even when we're in the chair, we want our abdomen to be active so that we can really lengthen. We're just going to do a quick check-in, noticing the toes all the way up through the legs, all the way up to the crown of the head. Are we holding tension anywhere? Where might we want to stretch or send some of our breath to really relax it? When we breathe, we want to breathe from the abdomen. We feel the belly expand and bring the hands there to feel that. We'll lengthen through the exhale, breathing through the nose. Just finding that connection in our internal, how are we doing? So we're in this seated posture. We're going to do a couple of movements here. Right hand on the earth, left hand comes up overhead. You can do this in the chair as well. Right hand can be on the chair. And then we'll switch sides. Left hand down, right hand overhead. And back the other way, right hand down, left hand overhead. We have some freedom of movement here for that left arm. Maybe gaze up towards the ceiling, depending on how that feels in the body.
That's good.
Yeah, so we'll do one more back on the other side, adding in your movement, anything you want, and back to center. We'll do a little bit with the wrists, arms come out, some wrist circles, palms are in a fist, or they could be wide. Maybe you do some of both.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you using the back as a using something for people to lean up against? Is that very good for them when they're starting for balance sake, or is that just comfort level?
Part of it's comfort level. So there's no requirement to have anything behind you, but if you need it, by all means. And we can do a balancing posture here on the earth. So it might be nice if you want to lean back and have the chair behind you. And this could be more comfortable and allow a person to really test out where they're at. If away from the wall or the chair, you could lean back. And if you're seated in a chair, you might be seated on the bottom of the chair and the legs are still long, and that's perfectly okay. Or you can bring them all the way in towards the chest. And we can hold on to the chair if we want. We can hold here. We're just feeling that movement of lifting the legs. If the hands are behind the knees, sometimes that gives some extra support. The arms can also be out. So just noticing how that feels and where it's at. That's a really good core strengthener and adjustment. We're going to come onto the hands and knees. Now, I'm going to demonstrate seated first. Hands come to the knees, no matter where they're at, even if the legs were long. And we'll bring the chest forward, chin towards the chest, ceiling. And then chin towards the chest. This is a nice seated version of cat and cow. Feel free to continue with that. I know, Suzanne, you're in a chair, so it's perfect. You can demonstrate for everybody. If you're on a mat or the floor, you can do hands and knees. The wrists are under the shoulder, and the motion looks a little different. The tailbone tilts up, and then it tilts downward. So both of those are options to do. Some really good stretches for the legs. If the legs are long, even in a chair, maybe sliding forward a little bit, as long as the chair doesn't slide out from under you. We'll bring the heels to the earth in front of us, legs are long, arms reach up just to gather that length in the spine, reaching, and then we fold, reaching towards the toes. There's no obligation to be at the toes. Wherever the hands come to, as long as you're getting length through the backs of the legs, should feel really good. If you want, you can take the knee and the nose all the way to the knees, but there's no requirement. So again, it's where you're at and what works best for you. If you feel like the tailbone is tilting a certain way, sitting on a block or a book can be really helpful if you're on the floor. And there's another version of this. So if the knees are bent, maybe there's a lot of tension in the hamstrings or in the hip flexors. We can do that same posture here and then slowly work the legs a little bit longer. And that just gradually allows us to do the full expression of the posture. So there are options with that. We're going to bring the bottoms of the feet together. Now in the chair, that's a little bit harder. But if you'd like, you can bring, you're good. Okay. You can bring one foot in, maybe cross the ankle at the knee. Lengthen through the spine and fold if that feels good. If there's already a lot of sensation in the legs, feel free to stay here. It's lunchtime here, so I have a couple people that may be coming around the area. Sorry about your interruption.
Alrighty.
Come over, Lee. Now we're going to make it up to standing. I think you'll still be able to see me, okay? Our feet are hips width, our shoulders lower. This is melting, so it's a nice pose. And you can really feel the legs and everything active. Length through the spine, shoulders are back and lower. We'll take the arms up, reaching them up and fold, reaching towards the feet. Now there's no obligation to have the hands at the feet. Here is perfectly okay as long as you feel a nice stretch through the backs of the legs. And one way to help know that we're getting that stretch is to fold from the hips and really press those hips back so you start to notice that length in the backs of the legs. It might be pretty intense if you haven't been able to stretch lately. You can reach down towards the floor. If you're in the chair, you can do this too and just fold forward, let the hands reach towards the floor. The knees would still be bent. You get a nice spine release. That's the best part. Especially once the head and neck relax. The arms just dangle. And then halfway lift. We'll come halfway up. If you're seated, your hands come to the knees and you lift up. But our goal here is to be able to have a tea party on our low back. So hopefully they serve you some tea up front, but approximately there. And then we come all the way up, lengthen your legs back to standing. And I'm going to share a couple warrior postures. So if you're standing, your legs would come out, right leg comes back. Arms come up for warrior two. If you're in the chair, you can still take the left leg out towards the left a little bit and lean against the chair. But find a good version for you. Reverse warrior, the right hand comes down, left hand up. And back to our warrior two. That's beautiful, Suzanne. Got it. Then we'll lengthen through the front leg if you're standing and lean forward the opposite direction. Coming all the way back up. Keeping that leg long, turning your hips if you're standing, arms come all the way up. So if you're in chair, you would bring both arms up, bend through that left knee. This is warrior one. Relaxing here, lengthen through that leg, bring the arms down, relax. We'll bring those feet back together. Let them shake out a little bit. And then switch legs. So the right leg will come forward, the left leg is back. You want to feel both sides the same way as much as we can so we feel even. Arms come up, warrior two. Reverse warrior. Back to warrior two. We'll lengthen through that front leg. Right hand comes down for triangle, left hand up. Beautiful. And all the way back up. Keeping that right leg lengthened, we'll bring the hips towards each other. If you're standing, arms come up by the ears, either way, right knee bends, warrior one. Lengthen through that leg, let the arms relax, and come back to center. The last one I'm going to share, at least in this part of the flow in the process, is downward facing dog. So we'll fold forward, then the hands come forward, the legs are back. Now it's more important to have the hips up and back than it is to have length through the legs. If you're in a chair, the best way to do this, as long as the chair doesn't have wheels, is to come stand behind the back of the chair, or maybe in front of the table, and the arms come to the table or the back of the chair, and you'll hold on, and then start to walk the feet back behind you, making a triangle shape. You've got it, Suzanne. I'm glad the chair isn't rolling around. So it would be something like this with the chair in front of you. Beautiful. We'll make our way all the way back down. There are planks and other, oh wait, one more. I wanted to do a standing posture. So balance, I talked about balance as well. So we're gonna stand here. Sometimes it helps with the hands on the hips. And then we lift that foot. If you're here, the toes are on the mat, that's okay, that's still balance. You can lift that foot all the way up if it feels good. Maybe you have a hand on the wall or a chair. That works too. And then that foot comes in. That foot can come even with the toes still on the earth. Maybe the toes come, or the feet come to the calf, maybe to the inner thigh. But the main part is that we're able to challenge our balance. We spread those toes wide. And when you're ready, you can bring the arms up. This is tree pose. It's a great, great balancing posture to open up the hips, to open up the heart, allow everything relax, and switch. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It happens.
Okay. I had a call, it vibrated, and it went. Oh, let's do the other leg before we get started. And we'll bring the arms up wherever your version of tree is. Beautiful. And then let the body relax. I'm going to make one adjustment a little bit again. Okay. We'll come back to seated wherever you're at. Those are just some of the options. It's kind of nice to have a stretch of the spine where we're going lengthening through the spine, going sideways and forward and back. All of those are important to keep things moving. We've got over 140 nerves in our spine, and it's super important to have that flexibility. Now, if there is a space where maybe there's back issues going on, something that a person may have, we would just want to be really careful about the movement or anything there and adjust and do the parts that we can't do. Really, that's with any posture, right? If we have knee issues or ankle, feet, any part of the body, we just do our best with wherever we're at. We'll come back to seated, check in with that breath, and bring the hands to the abdomen if it feels good. Breathing in and out. You can close the eyes if that's comfortable, or maybe find one spot to look at. Sometimes it's nice to keep the eyes open if we've got a lot of things going on in the mind, just for safety. And then let the body relax, the hands rest anywhere that's comfortable for you. Our shoulders sink into the earth. You want to lay down completely on the mat. That's an option. We'll do a short meditation, bringing our awareness to our heart. If it feels good, you're welcome to bring the hands there. And feeling the heart overflowing with our internal love and compassion, this unconditional love from source or spirit, any source you believe in. Feeling it flow from the crown of the head down to the toes and literally overflowing, coming out And in that overflow, feel free to bring in any other beings, maybe pets, special plants that you have in your life, parents, family members, friends. Let them feel that unconditional love from you as you get to feel it too. Truly enjoy this experience. If there's other things that are coming up in the mind, maybe just set them aside for the time being. Maybe put them in your back pocket if you want to come back to them. Just finding this peace and rest here in the moment. And then finding some silence and stillness. Sometimes this can be tough if you need to wiggle the toes or you get an itch. It's okay to move. Just knowing that we can find some stillness. And in a class, we might sit and rest for at least 5 minutes. But for today, we'll let the eyes come back open and I'll come a little bit closer to join you again, Suzanne.
I think that's a great setup. I think that really gives people a great start on, and those are pretty easy movements so that people can remember them. But for our listeners, you're always going to come back to this video and do it again and again and again with Emily. So feel free to come back to this YouTube and work very long. Lean in and really enjoy it. Find yourself a space on the floor where you can do full activity. So that's
Yes,
great.
definitely.
And for all of you who are listening, also, don't forget you can go into the Facebook page, the Ask Me Bridge, and send any messages by Emily by looking for her name in the list of all my guests. She'll be at the very top since she's today. But as I go further and further, look for Emily Martinock. And you feel free to put any questions in there. And if you have her tagged, she'll get the notification right away that you have a question for her about anything you need to do. But I want to say thank you so much, Emily, for coming today. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our discussion that I have not asked you?
Drink lots of water. That's the main thing that keeps the body going. Deep inhales and exhales, especially before bedtime to let the body relax. But I so appreciate you for having me on, Suzanne, and being able to be here, and Emily. And I hope you all enjoy. Feel free to reach out, as Suzanne mentioned. And yoga is really for every body, everybody, anybody. So I hope you can find something fulfilling on the mat, no matter what pace it is.
Absolutely. Oh, it's something I've always wanted to get more and more involved in. And I really want to say thank you for starting me with even my poses. I'll come back to this YouTube and do it more often because it's like you were giving a perfect, just a 5-minute start. I always was curious about what stretches to do, and that whole five, let's see, not even 10-minute demonstration was perfect for anyone just starting their morning. Now, is there anything you'd like to do in the morning, Emily, to do you put gratitudes along with a morning stretch, or do you put anything else in your morning? Or let me ask you, what times a day do you find are most advantageous to you or to a starter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So around, according to Ayurveda, which follows the sun or chronobiology, we'll get into that a little bit more next time, but it is good to practice first thing in the morning. So sometime between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., as long as you can still eat breakfast. And a lot of times we'll eat breakfast afterwards, unless you're absolutely starving. By all means, do what you need to do. Other things that I've got some dinacharya or Ayurvedic practices around oil pulling or oiling the body, as well as just preparing for the day and the shower and everything else that I've got going on. The practice in bed, I do tend to do meditation when I wake up, and I'll do a little bit too of just some soft, gentle practices before I roll out of bed or get up to standing when I get out of bed. It just feels good and it lets me connect with the body after being not outside the body, but in a different state while sleeping. So
Mm.
that's really good. In the evenings, if a person is going to practice, because sometimes, our schedule happens, right? There are times where we have to go into work early or things like that. So if you do practice in the evening, trying to do more of a relaxing, so not a vigorous and fast-paced yoga class, but something where you're just settling in and really getting ready for bed. And at the end, maybe just laying flat and being like, all right, I'm ready for bed. What
Mm.
we do the night before and we can set an intention for the next morning and the next day. And it's a beautiful way. And in fact, Mary will talk about this in Breathe Thinking Institute, where our day starts the night before when we set that intention. So we can use that intention through meditation or our practice right before we go into meditation, before we go to bed, and kind of that calmness of the day.
I think that's great, and I should probably put that into my into my repertoire as well. Just because I know that sometimes our nighttime thoughts can run away from us, but what a great way to really redirect our thoughts before we even fall asleep at night. I use a lot of music, but that might be a good practice to get into as Mary says. I've heard it many times, and I have to set an intention. And it's not a habit. Well, it is a habit. It's not a resolution to start. It's a habit to begin. And as we had talked about
Mhm.
before, is getting into the right frame of mind to start your night or to start your morning is going to be so important for the results you have that day. If you get up and it's like, I don't feel like doing it, well, you're going to have, I don't feel like doing it kind of a day. And is that
Yes,
the kind of day you want to have? So, but give yourself grace. I'm someone to give yourself grace and say, okay, I did have that morning meeting. I had to get up and get the kids off to school. But tonight, I'm setting an intention right now. After their bath time and story, I am going. So you do have to give yourself some grace and say, today happened, but I'm not going to let today end without some form of practice. What do you
yes,
think of that?
definitely. Yes, yes, it's a really good way. And once we start, it's so much easier. 5 minutes of meditation or intention or stretching can easily get a person to an hour or however long they need to feel that connection to mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. Now, Emily, I have to say that this is the perfect segue into next week, because after people have gone through your meditation of lying down and going through that, Sharon Fillmore is going to be here next week to talk about how to even take that one step further into her program called Dusk to Dawn on how to sleep better. So now you're going to get the whole process between Emily, Sharon, Emily. So you'll know how to take your whole night so that you get a much deeper sleep. And I think that that's going to be so important for how we run our days.
That's beautiful. Yes, that's absolutely wonderful.
Perfect. So, without further ado, I'm going to say thank you to you for coming today. I so appreciate you being here and helping my listeners. And I always try and help my listener know that while we may be autistic, we are still living wonderful beings. And none of this is out of your availability. And I brought the three different kinds of movement so you can decide what kind of movement serves you best. We're not going to say that one is better than the other, or you can do a combination of them. You can enjoy, maybe perhaps start with Emily, go to Cody's Transcendence, and then with a walk afternoon, or with Noel. You can mix and match as your heart's delight and put all three of them into your schedule. But at least do something. Do something. And I think that's the most important part three of the women to the YouTube, show you how you can do all the different kinds and choose what's best for you. Because as I said last week, the best exercise is the one that you'll continue day after day after day. If you can do more than one type, great, you're on your way. If you can do just the one type, you're still moving. So I want to say thank you to all three. Emily, thank you. Cody and Noel, thank you for past few weeks. And I think that will get everybody started. Perhaps as they go on, I have an Aspie woman that may come on and teach you how to do one of the martial arts. But for now, these three will get you going. And Emily, thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great day. I hope you'll come back next week for the Aspie Bridge podcast on Sleeping Well with Sharon Fillmore. So have a great day.